Welcome back to the online sessions on embedded systems. So after breakdown, we are starting with the second unit, and in this particular chapter, we go normally going to deal with the programming, certain programming concepts involved in the 8051 microcontroller. So here, whenever we deal with programming in the previous sessions, we discussed about various types of addressing modes and various types of instructions also we discussed. And before we start with doing some programs, we'll try to discuss some of the types of operations that we normally going to perform in the programming. So in programming, we perform various types of operations such as arithmetic operations, logical operations, jump instructions. So we normally handle with the interrupts. Okay, so all these are the basic types of operations which we have. So let us try to go with the basic operations. And before we write a program, you should know various concepts involved in the programming for various types of operations as well. So first of all, let us go with the arithmetic operations. So whenever we perform arithmetic operations, we should remember about a register called as PSWR register, program status word register of 8051 microcontroller. So in that program status word register, what flags are very much important, which are going to get affected by the arithmetic operations, that are going to be the carry flag, auxiliary carry, overflow, and a parity flag are normally utilized in many of the arithmetic instructions. Now the arithmetic instructions are grouped into various subtypes as addition, subtraction, multiplication, okay, increment, decrement, all these, multiply and divide, all these four are the basic arithmetic operations which we normally going to perform. So among all these operations, simplest operation is going to be obviously addition operation. So here in the addition operation, register A, called as accumulator, is normally going to hold the result of any addition operation. So the flags in the PSW register are affected by various addition operations, such as carry flag is simply going to get affected because of addition operation. So whenever carry flag is set to 1, what is the meaning of the carry flag is set to 1 if the addition resulted in carry out of the accumulator MSB bit? That means in the MSB bit, if carry is generated from after the MSB bit, then this carry flag is normally going to get set. So in the carry flag register, if carry flag is set, means what? The resultant value in the MSB has generated a carry. That is the meaning of this particular carry flag generated in the PSWR register. Similarly, auxiliary carry flag called as AC flag is set to 1 if there is a carry out of the bit position 3. Now usually 8051 is a 8-bit microcontroller. So since 8051 is an 8-bit microcontroller, we are going to have, we can perform the 4 bits operations also called as nibbles. So that means 0, when you start from 0, the fourth bit is going to be third one. Position 3 bit is called fourth bit for us. So if a carry is generated out of the bit position 3 of the accumulator, then it is normally going to become equal to 1. If not, this flag is normally equal to B0. So that is what, how we normally get a carry flag and auxiliary carry flag. So carry flag is normally going to be the carry which is the result after the 7th bit, and auxiliary carry is going to be after the 3rd bit in the bit values of the accumulator. The next one is subtraction. So computer is normally going to perform, computer means your digital processor. So a computer subtraction can be achieved using 2's complement arithmetic. So even though we perform subtraction, but the subtraction is normally performed like addition, but it is simply going to be a 2's complement kind of addition. So most computers also provide instructions to directly subtract signed or unsigned numbers. The accumulator register A will contain the result. That means here also the accumulator A is normally going to contain the result, which is known as difference of the two operands. Two operands of the subtraction operation. So the carry flag is treated as the borrow flag. Now what is important here is the carry flag in the PSWR is set and it is treated as a borrow flag if a borrow is really taken for doing the subtraction operation. Okay, so already we know in the case of doing subtraction operation, in case if needed, a borrow will be taken. So similar to that, here also a carry flag is treated as a borrow flag which is always subtracted from the minute during the process of or operation of the subtraction. So if borrow is taken, this carry flag is set and this carry flag is treated as a borrow flag in the subtraction operation. This is what the flag which is normally going to get affected in the subtraction operation. The next operation is going to be called as increment and decrement arithmetic operation. So increment instruction is basically INC. Instruction has the effect of simply adding a binary 1 to a number, while a decrement is something like instruction has the effect of subtracting a 1 from the number. So here increment means adding by 1. Decrementing means what? Decreasing by 1. That is what the basic thing which we have. So the increment and decrement instructions can use addressing modes. Now what addressing modes are allowed? In the increment and decrement mode, it's going to be direct, indirect and register addressing modes are normally used in the increment and decrement instructions or operations. So what flags are not affected here in the increment and decrement operations? So the flags known as carry, auxiliary carry, overflow flag are not simply been affected by the decrement and increment instructions. So here in this case of this increment decrement instructions, what happens is like after FFH, if FFH is normally incremented by 1, it overflows to 00H because the maximum capacity for 8-bit register is going to be of FFH only. And in the case of decrement, 00H is if it is decremented by 1, it simply underflows to FFH. Okay, so this is what the basic things which we normally going to have to simply understand about overflow and underflow here. So this DPTR register called as data pointer register cannot be decremented using the decrement instruction because data pointer register is basically of 16-bit register. So it cannot be really done with that. Next instruction is going to be important instruction is going to be multiply and divide instruction. So we use here the instruction known as MUL or DIV, known as multiply and division instructions. So here the 8051 supports 8-bit multiplication and division. This low precision 8-bit arithmetic, but is useful for many simple control applications. Basically, multiply and divide are used for control applications. The arithmetic is relatively fast since multiplication and division are implemented as a single instruction. In 8051, multiplication and division are known as a single instructions. Therefore, it is faster enough in performing the various operations of multiplication and divisions. If better precision is required, then that is floating point arithmetic is required, then special software routines need to be written. So we have to write the special software routines. For multiplication and division instructions, the register CNV must be used and only unsigned numbers are supported. Here, for multiply and division, unsigned numbers are normally supported. And next important point is that we will be using only two registers known as A and B to support multiply and division operations. This is what the important point. Only two registers are normally being used for supporting this. The next here decimal adjust. Decimal adjust is going to be another instruction which is a special instruction. When we have two BCD numbers, if we add two BCD numbers, the resultant, if at all we wanted to have a decimal value, then we can use this DA instruction called as decimal adjust instructions. This is one more type of instruction which we can use. So what are the various arithmetic instructions we have in the 8051 microcontroller? We have add. Addition is done by using ADD add with the registers. So this is the register addressing mode. In this register addressing mode, the source operand and destination operand. The two operands are going to be of registers. Therefore, it is called a register addressing mode. Next mode is going to be direct addressing mode. Directly, we are going to mention the value here. So add direct byte to the accumulator. So whatever is mentioned here, that is directly added to the accumulator. The next one is add indirect method. That means we use @ operator to have a add indirect RAM address. That means in the RAM location, there is some, in the RAM location, there is some data. So the data is going to have some address. The address is placed in RI. So this @ is nothing but at the value contained in the address pointed by RI will be simply fetched. That is added to the accumulator. So that is what the operation which we do. And next one is immediate. Add immediate data to accumulator. Immediate means what? Directly data is not. It is taken as a data. Direct means what? This direct is normally going to contain the address. So whatever value present in the address, that value is normally used for addition operation here. Unlike here, directly this data is normally used to add because of the hash symbol. If hash is provided, means directly this value is added here. Here directly value is not added. So add direct byte to the accumulator. So that means what we are going to have it here. The difference is going to be like this. Then one more addition operation, ADDC. ADDC is the entire instruction. Now this is nothing but add register to accumulator with carry. So add byte. Similarly, we are going to have ADDC, A register addressing mode, direct addressing mode, indirect addressing mode, and immediate addressing mode. So all these addressing modes I can represent the add with carry. Similarly, we are going to have an instruction called subtract with borrow, register addressing mode, direct addressing mode, indirect addressing mode, and immediate addressing mode also. So we can use these instructions. Increment A, increment accumulator. ACC stands for accumulator. So increment accumulator. Increment Rn means what? Increment the register specified by R suffix n. N is going to take values from 0 to 7. Then similarly, you're going to have the addressing modes as this is register addressing mode. This is going to be indirect addressing mode. It is going to be the this is direct addressing mode, indirect addressing mode, and next operation is going to be decrement accumulator by 1 binary bit. Similarly, we can write the decrement instructions by using various addressing modes. Then increment DPTR means a DPTR pointer is simply incremented by 1. Multiply AB. So this is what I was talking to you. For multiplication and division, we simply going to use registers A and B only. This is what important point which we have to look into. So multiply A and B, result is stored in accumulator, and quotient is stored in the remainder is stored in the accumulator, quotient is stored in the B register. Similarly, multiplication means what? Multiply, resultant is stored in the accumulator. Division means what here? In the division part, the remainder is stored in A and the quotient is stored in B. So next one is decimal adjust accumulator. So that means the contents of accumulator are adjusted to the decimal value after the BCD addition. So this is what we use this DAW operations. The next instruction is going to be like jump instruction. Let us look into the jump instruction now. So what are the various jump instructions we have? Why we use jump instructions? Jumps are going to be two types basically: conditional jump instructions and unconditional jump instructions. What do you mean by conditional? Conditional jump instructions are normally used based on the condition of the flag registers. So due to the operations like various arithmetic operations, some other operations, flag registers are going to get affected. So based on the contents of the flag register, the control is normally going to jump to the locations identified by the jump instructions. So jump instructions in 8051 can be categorized into two types: conditional and unconditional jump instructions. So let us look into the conditional jump instructions. When a conditional jump instruction is executed, the program can simply specify a program label or a 16-bit address for the conditional jump instruction destination address. So that means here the assembler will position the code and work out the correct 8-bit relative address for the instructions. So how the jump instructions are implemented? Bit jumps operate according to status of the carry flags into the PSWR register. The bit jump instruction as given below. Jump on carry. That means jump if carry flag is set to a location pointed by RADD. Okay. Similarly, jump if no carry to the location specified by RADD. Similarly, jump if addressable bit is equal to 1. Jump if addressable bit is equal to 0. That means jump if no addressable bit to the location specified. This small b stands for bit. Jump if addressable bit. Okay. So like this, we can normally operate jump instructions bitwise. It checks the bits and then the control is normally going to get jumped to the appropriate locations. The next one is going to be byte jump instructions. To test the bytes of data. If the condition is true, then the then the jump instruction is normally again taken place. How they are executed? First of all, here compare A with data, then jump if not equal. The jump if not equal. That means this jump is nothing but J is for jump instruction, N is nothing but not equal. So first of all, it compares these two A and B, and the control is normally going to jump to this particular relative address location. Jump if not equal. Jump if both A and data is not equal, then only the control is normally going to jump to the another location. Similarly, it is going to now compare the contents of register R and the data, and the same operation is normally going to get performed. Jump if not equal. Similarly, jump if not equal with the indirect addressing mode operation. So it's a combination of immediate indirect addressing mode, and we normally going to jump to the location. So decrement Rn and then jump if not equal to 0. So this is jump if not equal to 0, decrement the Rn register, and if it is not is equal to 0, then jump to the relative address. Okay. So like this, we can simply execute the various byte related jump instructions. The next simplest jump instruction is going to be unconditional jump instructions. Unconditional means what? Without checking the carry, without checking any condition, the control will jump to the specified locations. So these unconditional jumps can be called as long jump instructions. Causes the program to branch to destination address defined by the 16-bit label or operand in the jump instruction provided. Because a 16-bit address is used, the instruction can cause a jump to any location within the 64 kilobytes of program space. So basic syntax for this is ljump ljmp label on underscore x jump to the specified label. So if I use this instruction with 0f200h, then jump to the address 0f200h. That means here this directly the control goes to that and executes it, and if at all there is an end instruction there, the program is normally going to get halted. The program won't return back to the previous instructions. Okay, it is going to be totally unconditional jump instructions. So this is another special jump instruction, jump to the address which is the sum of the DPTR register and register A. It simply adds these two, and the control will jump to that location specified by this particular address A plus DPTR. So that is what another jump instruction. The next is going to be called as a small jump instruction. Small jump instructions are going to be a short jump instructions. Uses a single byte addresses. These addresses is a signed 8-bit number and allows the program to branch to the address specified between minus 128 bytes back to the current program control address. So that means it is normally going to have the addressing as minus 128 to plus 127, which normally going to store 8 bits of data. So this is what one of the jump instruction we have. Then a jump instruction is a special 8051 jump instruction which allows a jump with a 2 kilobyte address boundary. So auxiliary jump instruction it is known as. So it simply jumps with a 2 kilobyte address boundaries. Then next type of the jump is going to be the call instruction. So call instruction is normally implemented with the stack registers. So it is something like implementation of a function in the C programming language. So whenever we call a function in the C program, what happens? Before the control goes to the function which has been called by from the main program, what happens? The next instruction of the main program is stored in the stack, and the control goes to the subroutine or service routine. It executes the task, return back after it encounters the return statement to the main program after it fetches the next instruction in the main program. So this is what the basic instruction of the basic function like a basic instruction like a function in the C programming language. So we have L call instructions, we have A call instructions in this. Now let us see how an L call instruction is been implemented in the program. This instruction is used to call a subroutine at a specified address. It is something like from a main program, if you call any function. Now instead of a function here, we are normally going to use a L call instruction in the 8051 microcontroller. So the address is 16-bit long, so the call can be made by any location. Call can be made to any location within the 64 kilobytes of memory space. When a L call instruction is executed, the current. Now what happens is the program presently, let us suppose the program will be the program counter, the control of the program will be in the main program. So the program counter is always going to point to the address of the next instruction, in general. So whenever the program control, whenever the cursor is going to encounter L call instruction, by that time, what the program control is normally going to contain? The program control is normally going to contain the address of the next instruction after call to be executed, which is there in the main program. Now what happens by executing this call automatically? When L call instruction is executed, the program counter content is automatically pushed onto the stack of the program counter. So automatically the contents of program counter are pushed onto the stack. When the then the control jumps to the specified location, it executes the instruction. So when the program returns from the subroutine, the PC contents is returned from the stack. So that means after the subroutine or after the function is going to encounter return instruction, the control simply comes back to the main program after popping the contents of the stack into the program counter. So from that point onwards, the instructions are simply going to get executed. So always remember, the program counter is normally always going to point out the next instructions to be executed in the program. So after execution of L call instruction, the program counter contains the address of the subroutine, starting address of subroutine. The control goes to that subroutine, performs the task. Okay, so after it returns back, before it returns back, it's simply going to get the value stored in the stack register, stored in the stack by using the pop instruction. So there are two instructions used here, sub instructions used here, known as push and pop. Before the control goes to the specified location in the call instruction, the next address is pushed. The next address in the main program is pushed into the stack. And next, before the after the program, after the subroutine or a function going to get executed, what happens? The data or the address stored in the stack register will be simply popped into the program counter. So after that, whatever contents the program counter is going to have, those contents, that means the value in those contents are simply going to get executed. That is what the instruction which we're going to have, which we already know from the program counter. So what is so important is that always remember, whatever the program counter is normally going to have, normally going to point to, only those instructions are normally going to get executed. This is what a point which is very important. And another type of the jumping the instruction or moving the instruction or taking the control from one location to another location is the interrupt kind of instruction. Interrupt is also a kind of the call instruction. So an interrupt causes a temporary diversion of the program execution in a similar sense to a program subroutine call. So CALL call, just now we used L call, A call. So A call is only to jump for the small, short distances, whereas L call is used to jump for the long distances. That means A call has to be used with the 8-bit address locations. L call can be used with 16-bit address locations. That is what long jump and short jump. But an interrupt is triggered. An interrupt causes a temporary diversion of program execution in similar sense to the program subroutine call, but an interrupt is triggered by some event. Now, what is the difference between interrupt and a call? Interrupt is driven by an event. Interrupt is driven by an event. That means some external event is going to take place. So after an event is normally going to take place, what happens? An interrupt is normally going to get triggered. Say a simple example is always going to be called as reset. A reset is an external interrupt signal. Once the reset pin is really pressed, what does it mean now? It is something like an external trigger. An external interrupt has been triggered known as reset. So after the microcontroller or microprocessor receives reset signal, what it does? It simply suspend all its operations, whatever it is doing. The microprocessor or microcontroller is going to reinitialize all its memory locations and make the microprocessor with along with its memory contents will be reconfigured and brought into the initial conditions. That is what called basic reset kind of operation. So we say, so similar kind of thing is normally used here. See, an interrupt causes a temporary diversion of program execution in similar sense to a program subroutine, but an interrupt is triggered by some event which is external to the currently operating program. So that means interrupt should come from the external device in general. Now, therefore, interrupts can be software interrupts can be hardware interrupts. Software interrupts means what? Software interrupts, hardware interrupts. Hardware means what? Somebody should press the, some reset button. That is called hardware interrupt. So we say the interrupt event occurs asynchronously to the currently operating program, as it is not necessary to know in advance when the interrupt event is going to occur. So usually interrupts are going to occur asynchronously. Asynchronously means what? Randomly. So when the interrupt is going to get triggered, it is not programmed. Whenever the interrupt comes by some random time in some random time period, then only the program has to, the control should simply move on to the interrupt service routine. That is what called, the interrupts which we really talk about. Therefore, they need not be time bound. They need not be time bounded instructions. So therefore, they are simply going to be come asynchronously. 8051 interrupts, there are 5 8051 interrupt sources that we have. Since the main reset input can also be considered interrupt, there are 6 interrupts listed here. So these are the interrupts which we can think of here, called as system interrupt, external interrupt 0, external interrupt 1, then timer 0, timer 1 interrupt, serial port interrupts. So these are the various interrupts which we are going to have in the 8051 microcontroller. Now, there is a small difference between the interrupts and the call instructions. That is called subroutine call instructions. What are the difference? Let us see them. Interrupt concepts are basically simple, and the following sequence of events are normally going to happen while executing the interrupts. The programmer enables the interrupt by setting the interrupt enable flag set to 1. So here the programmer has to enable the interrupt enable flag set to 1 if at all he want to use the interrupts. This is what one first point the programmer has to do. Second thing what he has to do, the external or internal circuit action causes one of the interrupt signals to be generated. So interrupt enable flag has to be set and the interrupt signal has to be generated. Now the CPU finishes the current instruction, places the program counter on the stack, and then control goes back to the and then replace the original content of the PC contents with the address of the first instruction of the program code for the particular instruction that make the interrupt. That means same as the lcall instruction. The control is normally before the control goes to the interrupt service routine. Whatever the main program next address is there, that will be stored in the stack register. That is what the point here. That means whatever contents of program counter in the main program will be stored in the stack. Then the control simply, goes into the interrupt service routine. So since then the PC, the contents of program counter are going to be simply the contents of the instructions in the interrupt service routine. So while executing the interrupts, the interrupt program must reset the flip-flops. So to start interrupts, you have to reset all the interrupt flip-flops, then you have to start the interrupt operation. This is always safe side to implement the interrupts. After completing interrupt return I means for return interrupt instruction, resets all the interrupt enable circuitries and pop the program contents from the stack. It is something like return instruction from the subroutine. Return instruction is subroutine. The CPU resumes executing the interrupted program. That means the CPU resumes its basic operations from the main program. So these are the various types of the instructions which we can think of before we really write a program, known as arithmetic operations. Okay, then we're going to have jump instructions, call instructions, and interrupt instructions or interrupt concepts. Now, while doing the programming, we are going to perform programming using assembly language. So there are two types of programming which are most popular for writing with microcontrollers. One is going to be high level programming language. Next one is going to be assembly language programming. So to write the assembly language program, what are the things which are so important? As I was talking to you, writing assembly code is bit tedious than writing the high level programming code using embedded C kind of programming languages. So we are writing purely using the assembly code. Therefore, what are all the things which are so important to remember? That is the issue for us. Okay. So we should learning process for assembly language. That is for writing a program using assembly language. What are the learning process which we need to have? You should learn about architecture of the CPU. That means you should know the program model or a programming model of the 8051 microcontroller. Programming model is usually going to contain the various registers which will be used in the programming language or in the instructions. So whatever registers which we normally going to use most of the time in the instructions, those registers has to be specified explicitly in the case of the programming model. That is what called programming model of the CPU. You should know compulsorily. Then you should need to learn certain other things also apart from that. What are they? That means you should know architecture of the 8051 microcontroller. You should know the programming model of the 8051 microcontroller or if it is microprocessor, 8086 microprocessor. Then after that, you should know a set of assembly language instructions used in the CPU. That means you should know, just now we have seen the set of instructions for addition, set of instructions for subtraction, set of instructions for multiply, division, increment, decrement, jump instructions. So all these instructions we have seen. So these instructions you should know explicitly. That means what instruction is for what purpose, and what is the meaning of that instruction in detail, so that you can use that instruction in the program. Then how to use the computer. If at all you are using a computer to write a program, you should know how to use a computer or a peripheral, whatever you're using, hardware device you are using. Then you should know a little bit about the operating system, what type of operating system on which you are going to execute your program. And if you're typing your program on a text editor, what type of text editor it is, and what is a text editor, you should aware of the text editor. How to use assembly, how to use assembler program, and how do we write the assembly code in that particular text editor. And how to use that assembler, that also you should know. That means how to press the reset button, how to use the keyboard panel to write the programs, and how to debug the program. You should know how to write program in assembly language, and like that you should know all these various steps in order to write a assembly language programs. Okay, now further when you go ahead, what are the steps for writing assembly program? Write the program using mnemonics, using the text editor. That means you have to write program only by using the mnemonics. Therefore, the assembly language code is known as a mnemonic code. Store the edited assembly code on the disk. Then call the assembler for converting assembly language program into the computer understandable language. Load the assembled machine language program from the disk into the RAM for testing purpose. So this whatever program you written in the disk has to be simply copied into the RAM area for testing purpose. Then after while testing, you normally going to identify some errors, then re-edit the program, reassemble the program, and once again retest the program. So like this, these various steps that you have to compulsorily perform while you normally going to write a program using the assembly language code. Now apart from this, what else we are normally going to require is that flow chart. So before we write any program, we already know that we have to draw a flow chart. Flow chart is nothing but a symbolic or a graphical representation of the program flow, is known as a flow chart. Therefore flow charts are normally used for visualizing the programs. It signifies the symbolic representation of the program flow. So it uses various elements. So you should be aware of these elements whenever you whenever you draw any flowchart for a program. Called action block. Action block means what? This block is action block is used to represent the data, moves, math operations, or any other instructions used to denote the program action. That means whenever some executable instructions are there, you normally going to put them in this particular action box, which is usually going to be a rectangular box. Then bubble symbol. Bubble is nothing but a small circle which is going to represent beginning and end of the programs. Decision box is nothing but a rhombus symbol. This rhombus symbol is used for decision making. That means it used for condition checking. Okay. So which is called a diamond shaped box or a rhombus box. Then line, simple line. This line is used for showing the line with arrow. Arrow is normally going to show the direction of the program flow. So these are the certain important things which have to be keep in mind to in order to normally going to write a program. Now apart from these things, other things which is important, as I was talking to you earlier, is going to be like, you should be aware of the operating systems that you are using. You should be aware a little bit about the operating system. Okay, such as DOS or Windows operating systems for programming processes. Word processing or text editor, you should know what type of editor you're going to use. So usually assembly programs are written in the text editor with an extension of .asm. So assembler is normally going to execute those .asm files and converts them into machine code with extension called .obj. And testing program means what? After we normally test this .obj file to get the .exe file. So .exe file is the ready to execute the program things. Then apart from this, you should know the programming tools and techniques. Programming tools means what? The computer is the sequential circuit. So the programming tool usually is going to be a computer in general. So which is nothing but a sequential circuit. Computer is known as a sequential circuit that fetches the instructions from the code memory. That means whatever code we write, we have to be stored in the memory. That from that memory, the code is normally going to get fetched byte by byte or word by word. And after fetching, it is going to get decoded. The code is going to get decoded in the decoder. The decoded program will be executed for giving the result to the user. So now here, what is so important? The challenges faced by the beginning programmers are unfamiliar with the tools and running of the program. So beginner programmers are going to face some problems with the utilization of tools and all. So therefore you should be compulsorily aware of these things compulsorily. Then what are the various reasons of going for assembly language program when we have the, that means advantages of assembly language over the high level language? One advantage is definitely going to be speed up operation of the computer. The speed of operation is going to be very fast if you use the assembly language code than the high level language code, obviously. So assembly language will reduce size of the program. Since the size is very less, definitely speed is going to increase compared to high level language, programming language. High level and machine level language is also going to be of longer length. Then assembly language programs are used to write programs for special situations like machine control operations, robot arm movement operations. Assembly language programs memory, will save the memory and money as well. Then to better understand how the CPU operates. Now assembly language program, using assembly language program, we understand also how internally the CPU is going to operate. So these are the basic, some of the reasons why we go for writing the programs with the assembly code or assembly language. Okay. So with this, we stop our discussion with the uh, 8051 microcontroller. Okay. In the next class, what we do is we'll try to take up one program, one or two programs, and we'll try to deal with the programs in the next session. So thank you very much for the today's session.